Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I wanted to share a recipe called Budin. This is a Puerto Rican style bread pudding. So to start our budin, I did buy one of these loaves. It's a pecan raisin loaf. I usually try to go with a bread that's a little bit sweeter. I always go to like the day-old bread at the grocery store because you do want this to be nice and stale. So the older the better. So we're gonna chop this up into little cubes and kind of let all the moisture come out of it. All right, so I have cubed all of my bread. This is gonna feed about 6 to 8. So you saw the loaf, it was pretty small, so a little bit goes a long way. We're gonna be putting eggs and milk and all sorts of stuff in here, so it's really gonna rise. Right now I'm gonna put this on a baking sheet. If you want it to dry up quicker, you can throw it in the oven and really dehydrate the bread. I'm not in a hurry, so I'm just gonna lay this on a cookie sheet, probably overnight, and I will continue it in the morning. Okay, so the bread, I did let it sit overnight. It's nice and dry. All the moisture has come out of it. It's exactly what we want. So what we're gonna do is add a cup of water into a saucepan. About a cup of water. To this we're gonna add whole cloves. About a tablespoon of whole cloves. About 3 star anise. And 2 whole cinnamon sticks. I'm gonna put this to boil and I'm gonna add this to my bread. So I'm gonna let this come to a boil. All right, so now we're gonna start mixing all of our liquid. I'm gonna go ahead and crack 2 eggs. Making sure you don't get any shells in there. If you do happen to get a shell, the easiest way to do it, to take a shell out, is to dip your hand in water first, and then the water kind of cuts through the yolk. That way you're not fighting with the yolk. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of whisk my eggs. Kind of get those broken up. I'm gonna add 2 full fat cans of coconut milk. And I happen to have cream of coconut. This is a very sweet type of coconut. It's kind of like an oil. If I don't have cream of coconut, I usually use condensed milk. You can use either, or you can use evaporated milk and just add sugar. When I add something sweet like this, I don't add additional sugar because we're gonna be melting sugar to kind of make it our base of our budin. So that's additional sugar. So I'm just gonna add this can of coconut cream. All right, so I got both my coconut milks, my coconut cream, 2 eggs. I'm gonna add about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I'm just using imitation vanilla. You can use whatever you have. And I'm gonna add a teaspoon of almond extract. There is cinnamon boiling, but it's not enough cinnamon, so I'm gonna do about a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. All right, so I'm gonna mix all of this together. I'm gonna add a dash of salt, because salt just kind of brings all the flavors together. And then to this, I'm just gonna add my bread. You would think it's too much liquid for the amount of bread, but it really soaks up all, this bread soaks up all the liquid that you add to it. So I'm just gonna let that sit for about a good 30 minutes until the bread absorbs all of that liquid. Okay, so for my glaze that goes on the bottom of my pan, I am gonna add to here, I'm eyeballing it of course, about 1.5 cups of sugar. I've found that the best way to melt sugar is literally putting it on a non-stick pan and just letting it ride out. I've tried to do with water, I've tried to put butter in it, but I've found that the best way to do it is just straight sugar, keeping an eye on it. Once it starts to melt and get kind of golden brown, you want to just start stirring it and stirring it and stirring it until all the little it forms like little hard balls of sugar. You want to start breaking those up. So I'm going to let that go. It's going to take a good 3 or 4 minutes before it actually starts to melt, and I'm just going to continue to stir it. Just kind of move it once it starts melting. Okay, so here I have all of my spices that I put a cup of water into. It has evaporated to just a little tiny bit of water, maybe a 1/4 cup, so it kind of reduced 3/4 of the way. This water is full of flavor, obviously, so that's what you want to get out of it. So I'm going to just kind of put this through the strainer so that I don't get any of the spices into the water. So I'm going to incorporate all of those flavors, and this is still continuing to absorb. So that was the last step to the actual breading. The only thing we're waiting on is the sugar here. I'm gonna check if it's kind of melting at the bottom. So if I move it around, you can kind of see it's crystallizing on the bottom. So I just want to keep an eye on that and just continue to mix it so that the sugar that's sitting on the bottom doesn't burn. So you see how it's clumping up like that? So as the heat starts to get to it, the clumps will eventually dissolve and turn into like a nice little syrup. And that's what we're looking for. So I'll let that sit for a little bit, maybe another minute, and then I'll stir it again every minute until it starts to get really golden, and then I'll continually move it. All right, so I've let this sit for about a minute, and you can see it's starting to get kind of golden brown. So I'm just gonna move this so that the bottom doesn't burn. And the reason I use a nonstick is it's because it's the easiest cleanup. If you've ever melted sugar in a non-nonstick pan, it's a bit of a disaster, and it takes a bit to clean. So I lied. This bread did have raisins in it, but I'm gonna add a little bit more raisins because the kids like the raisins. So I'm gonna do about another 1/4 cup of raisins because the bread already had raisins. Otherwise, I would use more like a cup of raisins. So I'll just incorporate that. I might need to use a little more bread. I might, if this doesn't absorb completely, but the bread is still kind of hard. I will toast some bread up and add it to that. But here's our sugar, and you see how it's kind of getting brown and golden. So I'm just gonna sit here and I am going to keep moving this around so that it doesn't burn. I'm gonna lower the temperature. It was on about medium, so I just went kind of medium low, so a little bit lower. And I'm just gonna stir this until all these little clumps break up. You can help it by just kind of pushing down without splashing. If you get burnt by this hot sugar, it is not gonna feel good. It's really, really scorching hot. So very gently, not splashing, but just kind of keeping it low, and just kind of pounding these sugar icicles out. You see it's starting to kind of get all broken up here. Just gonna scoot this back a tad. So you're gonna end up putting this sugar on the base of whatever pan you're gonna use. And this is gonna cook, and it's gonna kind of incorporate into the bread pudding, so that when you flip it over, you got this nice sugar glaze. All right, so this looks like it's done. I'm just gonna turn my heat off and continue just to move it a little bit. There's a couple little bumps in there that I'm trying to get rid of. Otherwise, this is ready. All right, so I rinsed my pan, and you can kind of see the caramel. It's nice and liquidy. That's perfect, and you can kind of see how it's sliding off of the nonstick pan, which makes for a really easy cleanup. I can get a nice little edge here. As it spins, it starts to get cool, and that's okay. You want it to cool down, because when it goes into the oven, it's gonna melt back up. So there's that. You want to even it out just like that and let it sit. Just go in and just crush all the bread as much as I possibly could, just to get all the liquid to soak into the bread. As you can see, there's probably more liquid than I want, but I've noticed that the bread inside is not hasn't completely absorbed as much liquid. Esme wants to say hello. And so that's why I'm kind of breaking it up, to kind of get those pieces exposed, to kind of suck up more of the liquid. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do that for about 5 minutes. Okay, so here it is. I've kind of manipulated it a little bit, opened up some of the bread that hasn't soaked all the way. It's soaked up a little bit more liquid. I'm gonna try it like this. I never make it this liquidy. The taste is right on point though. So it tastes great. So I'm gonna put that in my prepared pan. So I'll just dump that right in there. And this will rise a little bit. So I have about, I don't know, half an inch or so of space. So I'm gonna throw this in a 350-degree oven for about, I'm gonna start off with 40 minutes and then check it out and see how it looks. All right, so here it is. Just got out of the oven. It took about 60 minutes or so. It's gonna be nice and soft on the inside, you can tell. So I'm gonna wait about 15 minutes for it to cool off. I'm gonna kind of put my knife on the sides here just to get it released, and then I'm gonna flip it over onto a plate. As you can see, it's way too soft right now to see, it's kind of breaking up, so it's way too soft right now. So I'm gonna let it sit for a little while. I'll show you the finished product when it's ready. All right, this is the finished product. It looks delicious. Yum, yum, yum. All right, so that was about an hour and 5 minutes of cooking. You see what the sugar does though? Kind of caramelizes the bottom. And then when you flip it over, it's on top. All right, I hope you guys enjoy. Share, subscribe, and like. Love you guys. Good night.